recording, in which case, welcome. If you have any questions for Suzanne, you can post them into our Hearthspace group or at the bottom of where you're seeing this video, and I will make sure that she gets them. Excellent, that is all working for us. So we are live in the Hearthspace. Dun, dun, dun. That should all be working fine. So hello everybody, my name is Maggie Rose Cunningham. I am your host within the Hearthspace, within the Mag and Rose Hearthspace, and on magandrose.com and on our YouTube channel. And we've started a series of in conversation with people who are either, like Suzanne, rune practitioners par excellence, who it will be lovely to learn more about their work and what they do, or who have something valuable to contribute to our lovely community of eclectic, heroic, highly sensitive, empathic, discovering and exploring the runes with us. So yes, that's why we're here today. So Suzanne is one of the founding members of the Hearthspace. I'm so delighted to have you here, Suzanne.
Thank you.
You have been you're my pleasure. You've been with me really since the beginning, I would say, of this. Although Mag and Rose has been in existence since 2010, I had a pause, and I know we could talk about that because I know that was very annoying for you. That pause.
Wasn't annoying.
And
I was
then
just
I had to and did all of that.
Yeah.
No, you would never get it. I know that. But our paths sort of crossed early. And then we started working together, and you have been in the Hearthspace since the beginning, and all of our inner circle classes, you're there. You've done Awakening, you're on doing Mastery for the second time with me.
Yay.
And you do so much work in our community as well, supporting as a hearth-keeper in the Hearthspace. So welcome. It is lovely to have you here in conversation with. I've put a link to your YouTube channel in the event for this, but Crowfire Talk, it's called, isn't it? On your YouTube.
Yeah.
So I will mention that again at the end as well, but I know that you've been doing lots of sharing of your work on that channel. So if there are things that we talk about today that people want to know about in more depth, or they want to know more about your work, they can go there as well. So I would love to know from you, I've described a little bit about how we met, just about how you encountered the runes, how they came to be part of your life and part of your work.
Well, it's lovely to be here, Maggie. Thank you. The runes have been a really funny part of my journey. They came in very, very early on my path, because I was exploring lots of different pathways and things, and a lot of different pathways have the runes for like divination and things, so they come up quite a lot in a lot of literature and stuff and books that I've read. I remember, I think it was Cassandra Easing, because I really followed Cassandra Easing when I started out. I liked her natural witchcrafty way, and her books were very easy to read, and I think one of the first books was like a psychic development or something. I can't quite remember what the book was, and I think runes were in there. And then I think she did a separate book on the runes, which I think I had, but I had started off with cards, and I'd started off with the Sacred Pathway cards and the medicine cards. And I just didn't want another divination tool, really. I mean, I've played with like pendulums. I quite like working with pendulums. But the cards were my main thing. So it was just like, well, it seems a bit ridiculous to add in the runes, but I did buy sets of runes. I then sold them and gifted them. I bought books. I can't quite remember how many times I bought Diana Paxton's book, but I think it could possibly be going on to 4 times. I'm not sure, But I would have like these moments where they would really come in, and I would try and ignore them. But with my path, it's very much that something comes in, and I follow that thread, and I chuck myself into it. I get books, I research it, I look into it. It's a big part of my path, is this sage energy of like researching and checking out. And I did that with the runes so many times because they kept coming in, and I was like, oh my goodness, I've got to use them, I've got to do it. But I didn't find any books on magic necessarily with the runes. I was obviously looking in the wrong places, because everything that I come across was this it was either too historic, and I know that is like you love it, you know, I think Felicity doesn't she as well. It's not for me. And I like a good foundation, so I don't like to do something where it can collapse. So I do like a good foundation, but the Eddas and all of that stuff is just too heady for me. It doesn't light me up. I wanted a book on magic with the runes, and I wanted it to be my sort of magic. I didn't want it to be highfalutin, you know. It had to grab me, and I just didn't find anything like that. And then they came in again. I really strong. Oh, and a friend of mine, that was correct. A friend of mine had the Ralph Bloom set, and he wasn't a friend at the time. He was a friend of a friend, and she said, Andy's really into runes. And I went, oh, that's interesting. And we got chatting, because I was obviously into crystals and other things. He wasn't into runes in a very spiritual manner, although he was, but he didn't realize it. And I had some really horrible stuff going on. And he said, oh, I'll give you a rune reading. So I have this rune reading, and I just sat there, and Easter came out, weirdly enough. And I was hooked, and I was like, whoa, there's something here. So yet again, I went and bought books, but it went to the wayside. And then I think I moved here in about 2015. And I think 2016, they were really knocking at the door. And I found a guy online. I don't even know how I found him, Michael Keneally. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to have to learn these. There's something there. And then I went to Glastonbury. I had the most bizarre day because runes were everywhere. You know, like when something comes in for you, they were like neon everywhere, like flashing lights. And I found Katie Gerard's book, and her one on the rune. I can't remember what it's called now. I keep forgetting what the name of that. But Odin's Gateway.
Odin's Gateway.
Odin's Gateway. I bought that book, got home, and that was it. I was completely hooked. So I started an online course with Michael Keneally, which was okay. And then a lady who had a shop, she sells crystals and things, and she does Reiki and all sorts of things. She had some courses up again online, and I did her course. And in the meantime, Michael Keneally had said there was a rune tele-summit going on. And so I sat, I don't know whether it was over a couple of days, I can't remember, but I sat and I listened. But you were like, again, neon bright lights. It's like, oh, this woman, I have to listen to her. There's something going on. And I think a couple of people have said it in the Hearthspace and in the Awakening and stuff. that when you speak, you initiate people. And I think you initiated me that day when I was listening to you talking about the runes. Found you on YouTube. I did do a bit of stalking. Found you on Facebook, and I sent you a private message, and you never got back to me, and I was heartbroken. And it was about a year later, and I think you sent a message and just apologizing and saying that, you know, you'd been busy, you'd been having 2 beautiful boys, and your life had, you know, changed a little bit, but you would be coming back into the world with the runes. And that was it, Maggie, really. I mean, it's a bit of a long waffle, but yeah, they've come in. So Odin came in when I went to Glastonbury, in that book. Odin had come in the night before, and to be honest, I've had Odin come in my pathway because I'm so eclectic. I work with different gods and things, and Odin has been around from the beginning. But I'm not really into, like, I wasn't really into the Viking and looking into, you know, the Norse tradition. But I don't see a problem with that, because as far as I'm concerned, I could work with Odin, and I work with Merlin, and I find Odin and Merlin sort of, there's a funny, weird mixture between them. Definitely two different deities, but there's a, you know, maybe it's the same sorts of energies that they hold. So yeah, Odin came in, and I was like, I'm not going to ignore him. And then there was the book Odin's Gateway, and I was like, that's why you come in, to tell me to get that book. As soon as I got that book, that was it, because she was talking about what would light me up with the runes, the magic, the chanting, the all of it. And then that was it. They'd got me.
Oh, thank you, Suzanne. That was lovely. And I think actually for people, it's really helpful to just hear that journey, that sort of, you know, the arc of the journey, because so many people who come into the Hearthspace, who come and say, you know, what do I do? They don't know that those journeys of those people, because there aren't as many books out there about runes. There aren't as many people doing teaching work about runes. So it is really helpful to hear that. And I think that you're right. There's something for me about the runes, because they are sound forms, that yes, books have a place, of course they do, and runes are also, you know, written symbols. But there is so much missing when you don't get that engagement through the voice and that engagement with a person. And there is as well, I think, something about the fact that it is an ancient tradition that wouldn't have been passed down by books, because they didn't have books. You know, it was done person to person, you know, as an evolving, ever-changing, you know, respectful but always changing tradition. I can't remember, this is really bad for me because I should remember, somebody was saying to me last week that elsewhere, somewhere in the world, I cannot remember which tradition it is, but it just made me go, oh, when they said it. There are, I want to say it's about the Anansi stories, you know, all of the Anansi stories, and that there are people who are just like, you know, it's so sad that the Anansi stories have now been captured in book form, because the point of them was always that they were told around the fire, and they evolved and changed, and they were passed from one person to the next in that way. And I think that that is also true for the runes and the Northern tradition. The more that we do work in the Hearthspace, particularly with those stories, you know, they're supposed to be passed on, and they're supposed to change, and they're supposed to ignite. You know, you're talking about that flame that you felt with Katie's work, and I think her book is great.
Yeah,
it's
love it.
Really, really good. She's lovely, so knowledgeable but practical.
Yeah, I think it was the practice. I mean, it's funny because years ago, I bought Kadrick Olson's Runes for Transformation. Now, I was in the speaking tree in Glastonbury, and again, this book was like shining, and because it said transformation, because I like shadow work, and that's what I like. But you know, I bought that book, again, I bought that twice. I bought that book, and it was like I was reading Chinese. You know, I opened it and I was like, I don't get it. I don't. And you know, I couldn't get that part of the runes that isn't divination, that is magical. I couldn't pull it together. Now, once I'd read Katie's book, again, I think it was an initiatory process. But once I read that, I bought his book again, and I've watched quite a lot of his YouTube stuff and whatever. And I understood every single word of it. And it was like, that is bizarre. So although I wish runes had been there and I'd used them way back, like, you know, for you, that was how it was. For some reason, I was meant to do it now. And I mean, to me, it's because, you know, I have had the best teacher in the whole wide world. No one is better than you. You are the moon mistress of, you know. So yeah, you're my Freya, Aswin. Yeah.
Oh, but that's a good point, actually. Thank you, because when you were saying about that initiatory moment, and I do feel as if I was very lucky that when I met my runes and my rune set, I felt, you know, like a physical. It was my first ever experience, an energetic flood, you know. But I do remember listening to Freya Aswin sing the runes on a video that I can't find now. I can't find it. I think that it's come down. It was so powerful. And she just opened something in me in that moment.
Yeah.
And it was sort of one of the most fabulous moments of my life when she wrote to me and she called me Rune Sister. And I almost like fainted. I was so just like, Freya has to call me Rune Sister. I don't know what to do with myself. It was amazing. To have that, to be like, this is the person who unlocked something for me, and that they recognize me in that moment. And I think we all need that, don't we? We need that.
I think we do. And I think, you know, like I said, the book from Katie was great. That unlocked a door. And, you know, I would say I passed through Degas. I literally went straight through Degas. And then that to me was quite strange, because if you think of it, I know the runes are in a circle, but if you look at it as linear, I was at the last rune. But of course, the last rune is the beginning, isn't it? So all that I'd done over the years with my different stuff has brought me to this moment. And then when I heard you talking on that rune tele summit, there was a couple of other people that I connected with, but I don't know, you just did something to me. And it's been going on ever since. So so amazing.
I think that there is, you know, it's just that energetic connection, isn't it, from one person to another that creates that current through. I should say hello, actually. I've just looked at, there's quite a few people who've joined us in the Facebook group. So hello to everybody who's joined us in the Facebook. Hello to Elaine and Patricia, who've both waved in the comments. If you have any questions for Suzanne, pop them in the comments, and as long as we're still live, I will ask Suzanne about them. But you know, you've already touched on how broad your path is and how you follow that sage path, but also how unique and specific it is. And I think that's really important to note. You mentioned Felicity, and I should say Felicity's in our mastery group in case people Felicity is another person who's been there from the very beginning. Very much hope to interview her in the future.
Oh yes, definitely.
That would be lovely. And she does, I think you're right, follow the it's very written. It can be quite dense, the material that's out there, like very academic in its approach, and it's not thinking about it from a how would we use the runes today. It's sort of saying, oh, this is what we think people might have done, but they might have done this and they might have done that, and to work out how to apply that knowledge in the present moment is a labor of love, I think, sometimes. So, you know, some people enjoy doing that. You know, for me, I know that I want my work to be on that foundation. and I want people to know where it comes from. I want to know,
Yeah.
this is, it was received by somebody, 20 years ago. This was received, by Guido von List back in the day, and to be able to trace that, which is not always easy at all. So many of the books don't tell you, but that was really important to me. And we talk about that a lot, at the beginning of the Awaken program, about the path of the sage and the different types of knowledge that we have. And your knowledge is experiential knowledge, isn't it? When I look at it, I go, Suzanne's knowledge is experiential knowledge, because you know so much about different traditions that you have that comparison. And I feel that's very, it's just embedded deep within you, and you're able to say, yeah, this makes sense, that doesn't make sense, this connects, this doesn't connect. And you're one of the people I know who sort of follows probably one of the most eclectic. There are lots of, there are, of course, many people follow an eclectic pathway. But the way that you weave that all together and the amount of knowledge that you have staggers me. And I know that
staggers me sometimes. And that I retain it. I don't know how I retain it.
You retain it. Miraculous. I mean,
but I can't
and the way that you can
I can't do it. Has to ignite me. So I can get very bored very quickly with certain things. It has. And I don't know if it's that keen as in me, from, that's my first thread, but I need that spark. So, and for me, the academic side, I could just go to sleep. It's like, I really don't care where the word comes from. I mean, it's just, and I don't like rules, Maggie, either. I can't be constrained if, it's very, very uncomfortable. It's a very energetic thing. If I suddenly feel that I'm being wrapped up, I think we've discussed in the past, my witchcraft, there wasn't, again, too much out there. There wasn't many books. And the books that I found were Wiccan. And I know your Wiccan tradition. And for me, there was rules, and I was like, I'm not following that. I'm not doing the Wiccan read. I don't like the words. It's not for me. It's not. And although I did love Scott Cunningham, bless him, he initiated me, and Ted Andrews' work. But people will say to you, well, oh, this is really exciting. Look at this person. If I don't get the spark, they may be great and they may have fantastic knowledge, but no, I have to have the feeling. It has to, and the same with the runes.
And that is your structure in a way, isn't it? It's like, for some people, you were talking about your birth runes then, which I know some people know don't. So you've got that, you've got Kinas, you've got Isa, you've got Ingus as well. Hargalaz, rightly.
I think I've got Hargalaz twice.
So that makes sense. The disruptor and the ice in the fire, it's very raw, these like raw, primal, creative with the Kinas, and with the Ingus, there's something about it sinking down into you, and then you're like, yeah, that makes sense. And now it comes back out again with Isa and Kina. So I was looking at my birth runes and I go, I've got like Rado and I've got Ansu. So there is a lot of ritual and there is a lot of community. So it makes perfect sense, but it's just different structures, isn't it? And your structure is in your knowing.
You just have to have the structure, because there's no doubt if you don't have a structure, then at some point it's just a house of cards falling down, isn't it? So and I that's the other thing with things as well, is like, I can't buy one book on the runes, so I can't have one book and follow that and read that, because I need to know every single person's work with the runes, and then like you say, I then weave it in. So I've got quite a good collection now, because obviously in the past I've sold them and bought them back. The only one book I didn't sell, which I think I did say this on my YouTube, was Kenneth Meadows. I loved Kenneth Meadows. He was an amazing man, and I had his like shamanic books and stuff, and his book on the runes is very different, But that's the one book that, although it stayed on the shelf, I couldn't sell it. I just couldn't part with that one book. But yeah, I think you just have to find your structure and not be bothered that your structure and grounding isn't like, you know, like yours or Felicity's or, you know, Erica's or whoever. You know, if you look at our group, if you look at the Hearthspace, if you look at the Awaken, you know, like my Awakening, we were all very different people, but we had the common threads that then it, I mean, our, you know, the way we worked together as that lovely cohort was really amazing, wasn't it? It was, you know,
was absolutely.
And the second cohort, you know, how they've all worked together. It's really amazing how that works.
Yeah, it's that gelling and that bringing together of different people that makes this cauldron, doesn't it, of knowledge and experience, and who's going to be experimenting, who's going to be, you know, following the path of the sage, who's going to be more on the seer, and then you all come together and you grow because of that. And I've got a question actually from Carolyn in the group, which I'm going to ask you in a moment, but I did want to say, because I do think this is important, when I recognized that I was an eclectic practitioner, and that for me, some of my structure comes from the idea of service, you know, that I know that my service is to the Northern tradition. You know, that is what my service is to. That doesn't mean that I don't work with other traditions, but my work out in the world, I'm supposed to be of service there. And I was like, that was part of my structure. But I did do quite a lot of reading on people talking about eclectic practice and the challenges and the difficulties. And you've said, you know, that thing about not having structure and that it can go all over the place. That's very true. And I read quite a lot of critiques around eclectic practice with people saying, oh, it demonstrates a lack of discipline. That came up so many times. It's just that somebody can't be bothered to follow this path, you know, they don't have that discipline. And in some ways I could see what they meant, because I know that for me, the foundations were really important. You know, I was a Wiccan initiate and I had that structure and I followed it. And that was important for me. To then be able to move out of it. I learned it and then I moved out of it. That was my learning process. It doesn't mean it's everybody's learning process, but it was mine. But I love the distinction, and I think it was, who was it that said it? I can't remember who it was that said it, but it was a great distinction between the difference between discipline in the sense of, I will only follow this path and I will do this, and this is, you know, my self-discipline, and I'm not showing self-discipline if I go off on tangents, and being a disciple too. And when I look at you, I think what you just discussed was a perfect example of somebody being a disciple to learning and evolution and meaning, and not saying, oh, well, I'll just follow somebody else's path because I've been told that I should, you know, and just read one book because it would be much less time consuming. I will read all of these and I will synthesize it together, and it is going to be really difficult and it's going to take a lot of work.
I think for me, Maggie, as well, I did feel a lot of the time through, I mean, I don't even know when I sort of started, but let's sort of say 25 years, I did start with crystals, but for me, I've gone along through that time, and with all that outside influence of like, oh, well, you know, you're not disciplined, you don't follow this, you know, I'm not a, you know, like a, and I love discipline. I love that, you know, to me, like proper mastery and discipline is like a kung fu monk who, you know, spends his whole life doing his kung fu. I'm a real big fan of Bruce Lee. And he was a master. I mean, he was just a master. But so I've had a lot of people say to me, oh, you know, you're just a jack of all trades, a master of none. It's, you know, you're not. And I have still carried on. It's never put me off, but it has made me feel insecure about my path. Although in my heart and my soul, I know that my path is the path if we want to call it anything. It's the path of alchemy. It's the path of the phoenix. I rebirth constantly, and how I rebirth is that I do go off on a tangent. I do, and I have a rounded thing. So I have crystals, I have the I Ching, I have gene keys, I have human design, I have my witchcraft, I have my shamanic practice, but it's all weaved together. And now, obviously, now massively, the runes are at the top now. A Reiki, obviously, because I'm a Reiki master teacher. So again, with that, I read every single book I could find on Reiki. But I then became my own Reiki master. Now, with foundation, as far as this is my interpretation, if I am doing a Reiki treatment and Odin comes in and says, whoa, you need the swallow rune, let's get that down, let's do some drumming, I will do that, because I have enough knowledge to use my shamanic side, enough knowledge to use my runes, enough knowledge for my Reiki. If I teach Reiki, I teach Reiki. That's it. I don't flavor it with the runes. I would never bring the runes in. I might say in a break or something, well, I'm playing around with the runes, it's great fun. I might say something like that. But if I'm teaching something, I teach it pure. That's it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
because
I don't know if that helps.
Alchemy has to happen within the person, doesn't it? You know, you teach them the path and they understand it and they know it, and then it's
then they can flavor it,
can synthesize and flavor. And you know, for me, that's part of for people who've done Awaken. Obviously, the mastery program is available to them, and part of that program is experienced practitioners coming together and saying, I want to experiment with this, I want to experiment with that. But it isn't, they're not teaching each other, they are, you know, you're supporting each other. And
there's a difference. And it was mastery, you know. Again, you know, I feel I owe you massively, because in mastery, at some point in mastery, I don't know when it happened, I suddenly released that I'm a jack of all trades, a master of none. And I realized that I am a master of everything I do. And that doesn't mean I'm there. That means it's a continual journey forever. But the mastery program shed that last bit of trust in my path and my practice. So thank you.
It was a privilege to witness that happening, Suzanne. It really was. And I do think that that's the magic of a group coming together as well. You know, it's so important. Marie, actually, she's come in. Hello, Marie. Marie's you know, in your first mastery group, which said, I struggle to find my way, but I'm slowly getting there. Thanks to Maggie and Suzanne. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yes, all of the group is, you know, so supportive of each other. Yeah. It's so important. Carolyn has a question. You've waited patiently, Carolyn, while we've been talking about that, but it's a really interesting question. I think it is one that other people will be like, yeah, how do you navigate this? It's definitely one that comes up for me a lot. She says, my question is, how do you deal with the different pantheons? Is there one you work with and worship more for a certain time, or do you mix them on a regular basis?
My beginning in my magical practice was Egyptian. I wanted it to be Celtic because, you know, I live in Britain and, you know, it felt like it should be Celtic. And I tried, because again, the books that I was reading were Celtic, you know, there was Celtic goddesses and gods, and I just couldn't go with it. It just, again, it was that like it, but the Egyptian sparks me massively. So I did do Sekhem after I did Reiki, which is an Egyptian energy system, with the goddess Sekhmet. but I have a few like gods and goddesses from the Egyptian that I connect with a lot more. Thoth of wisdom, he's quite with me. I don't practice like a lot of people practice, so it will be that I might do a picture, or I might set up an altar, and I know Thoth has helped me set it up. Now, I don't see Thoth with crystals. There's not really. I mean, yes, the Egyptians did use crystals, but mostly for like makeup and things like that. They didn't use, or as far as I know, they didn't use them like we are now using them, and like say maybe other cultures did. But so I'll just know, oh, Thoth's coming, and I might get a writing or something, or I just feel. So I don't do worship praxis. So I've got like statues of Thoth, and I've got Odin behind me and stuff like that. I use them to be more in the background, but just to have that energy. And then if Odin comes in like he did in the circle, well, we were doing Odin, weren't we, in circle the other day? So but Odin was really powerfully strong here with me. So, but mixing them, I struggled, and I think we had quite a few conversations, didn't we, about because the runes are in my soul. They are flowing through my blood, and the more I work with them, the stronger it's getting. I love the Hearthspace. I love the work we're doing with the gods, but I don't connect as deeply as maybe I would like to. But the Egyptian have never gone. They just don't go. They're with me. And my patron goddess, if I can say that I have a patron, is actually Kali. And I tried, like the crossroad, I thought, well, Hecate, she's a darker mother goddess. No, she's, or Morgana, or, it's just so funny, because I've tried to well, this is my land and I need it to be, more, doesn't work. Why Egyptian? I have no clue. But I am starting. I had a meditation. I had a visit to Helheim. It was very basic, just go in there. It wasn't to meet Hela, it wasn't to do any deep work. It was really basic. And I was on this boat on a black river, and all of a sudden Anubis sat next to me, and I was like, what are you doing here? That doesn't make any sense to me. And then I just got in my head, he's the lord of the underworld. And I was like, but I'm doing Northern tradition. And then I just gave up, Maggie, because then it's like, no, we can weave all this stuff. If I work with the runes, and the runes are nothing to do with Egyptian. So if I did a little ritual, and I was, let's say I did a Sewello ritual with the solstice. Ra could come in. He's nothing to do with the runes, but he is to do with the sun.
Yeah.
I could have called in Suna's chariot. I could have called in Ra. I could have called in Sekhmet. I don't know any other sun deity. I can't think of, sun deities off the top of my head. But I could have done that. There's no reason why we can't. But if you're very pure and you just want to work with the Northern tradition again, then you must follow your heart.
Yes.
Mine is eclectic. That's what it is. And I can weave. And I am, this year, I'm going to do a lot more weaving. I'm going to do much more direct energy. So I am going to do what, you know, I've just said. I'm going to call in Ra and work with Sir Willow and see what I get. See if if I, you know, if it doesn't work, it doesn't, you know, but it will. They've just said it will. It will.
Oh, fine.
Yeah. I don't know if that's answered their question, because you know me, I go off on a tangent and just ramble on.
Yeah, no, she said thank you for picking up on the question, and she's put something there about, you know, finding your own way. For her, it's that following of the heart and embracing passion of the moment. So it does sound very similar, and that you realize that is my path, and as long as I'm, you know, being a, you know, do you know,
it's trust, isn't it, Maggie? It's trust. Trust in yourself is massive, and trust in what you're getting, and don't be distracted by others. Don't be put off, you know, don't be upset that you don't get Odin. It's fine, you know, you can still work with the runes. I mean, if you get Odin with the runes, that's just like bloody marvelous. But if you don't, it's not your path. You have to. Your heart is the most important thing. And I think the heart for the Egyptians, I mean, that was the, you know, brain meant nothing. Thinking, nah, heart is heart. All of it is heart. Yeah. So
I suppose from my perspective, I'd probably add two things into that as well. It's just when you were talking about, you were saying, oh, you know, I could do, you know, I was thinking, oh yeah, we could do like Apollo, or, you know, all sorts of different deities. But then I realized that with the runes, there is always a connection, because we are speaking, you know, you and I are speaking English right now.
Yeah.
When you say Ra, you're not thinking about it as like an Egyptian hieroglyphic picture and a sound associated with that picture. You're thinking about R and A, you know, Ra. And therefore you've got Rado and Ansus in there already. And people have been speaking those names in the Germanic languages for, you know, centuries, and there is, for that reason, a connection, even if it's just through words.
Yeah, well, if you look at Isis, and it makes sense to me, because she is she's like an embodiment of Freya, with that magic and that motherly. She's like almost like a cross between Freya and Frigg, you know, that in the middle. But when you look at Isis, you're Isa, Sir Willow, Isa, Sir Willow. It's so, you know, and I think that is sort of the way that I would like to play, because it would be like, well, you know, if I'm calling in Isis, I'm calling in Isa, and I'm calling in Sir Willow. You know,
how does that work for you?
Yeah.
And it is just that piece for me about saying, I am not claiming that the runes and Isis have a mutually common origin. I'm not claiming.
I don't, as far as I know.
The runes exist in me, and Isis exists in me, and they're going to talk to each other. You know? And they are powerful. You know, Isis is powerful. The runes are powerful. They're going to recognize that power. And if you do the work, you become the alchemist inside, don't you? And
I think when you look at magic, you know, magic is a set of ingredients to make a formula to you know, produce something. So it's, you know, if I want to make chicken casserole, do I just put chicken in and hope it is a chicken casserole? Well, no, I've got to put other ingredients in. Are they meat? No. Well, they can't go in with the chicken then, because they're vegetables over there. It doesn't. You have a toolbox, don't you? As you are learning, you have a toolbox, and that toolbox has so many different things in that you've learned. Some people in their toolbox might just be Reiki, and I don't mean that in a like just Reiki, but that might just be all they've done is Reiki. They don't like crystals, they don't do this, they don't do that. It's just Reiki, pure. That is as gorgeous as me mixing, you know, because it's got a lovely pure energy, and they'll get as much as I do, but in a different way.
Yeah.
It's my way's not right, but it is absolutely 100% right for me.
You know what? I was thinking about the chicken casserole and going, well, that's going to stay in my mind forever now. Sort of eclectic practice being a chicken casserole. It's actually such a perfect analogy. the more I was following it through, because I was realizing, yeah, when you start out, you follow the recipe book.
Yeah.
You learn it and you go, okay, the chicken needs to be cooked for so long because I don't want to get sick.
Yeah.
This doesn't taste nice if it's not done in this way. And you follow the recipes and you learn the way, and then you start to go, oh, well, we're going to have like chicken and chips together tonight, so I'm going to know how to cook the chicken, and I'm going to know how to cook the chips, and they're separate, but I'm bringing them together in the dish, to create a table. And then you get to the point of going, well, actually, now I'm ready to invent my own recipes, because I know how to cook the chicken, and I know, I'm going to do something else on the side, and actually these are going to work really nicely together and it will fit.
Yeah.
These are not going to work really nicely together. And some of us are the Heston Blumenthal of eclectic practice, and we'll do things that other people go, that is mad, that should never work.
Yeah.
And yet it does.
I think
you have to go through that process, don't you?
You do. And if you as long as, like we said, as long as you've got a foundation, if you've got no foundation, so you're just messing around with crystals, but you haven't worked with them, so but even this, when I do my altar, I do the runes at first, because they're like my absolute foundation. So I pick my rune for the week. I have already my outer and my inner half month runes, and then I pick my cards. So, and I choose what decks. So at the moment I'm using like the same 4 decks, and I put up 4 cards. Then I tune in, and then I get the crystals. But if my brain says, oh, well, that makes sense to use ametrine, if it's not meant to be ametrine, I'll get, whoa, no. And I can feel the energy. So just because my brain might actually think, well, ametrine will work with that because it'll be cleansing and it'll be clearing, that's not how I work. So I don't work with my foundational knowledge. I work with what feels correct. I mean, sometimes I did an altar a couple of years ago, and it had to be it was a real alchemy altar, and it was like loads of obsidian, and it was really powerful. And all of a sudden you've got to put blue lace on that, and I was like, don't be daft, that's just ridiculous. You can't mix blue lace agate with obsidian. I don't know why I thought that, but just like, no, that's not going to work. Do you know, I put that on. That was the most powerful altar I have ever done. Because I'm a projector, I don't feel energies, like crystals don't buzz for me like they do for other people, because my energy is different working with them. And it threw me near enough across the room. I have never, ever felt an altar like it, ever. But if I'd have used my brain, oh, well, you can't put blue lace with obsidian, that'd be silly.
They will clash.
Yes, they just don't work, but they did clash. And what did they cause?
Right. Yeah.
I know what they caused now. Hugglar's energy. I know exactly what they caused. Because now, because I've got the knowledge from the runes, is now part of
your repertoire,
my chefing, my chefess. So I know I do work with some strange ingredients sometimes. But yeah,
it is, isn't it? It is that I'm following the knowing, I'm trusting the path, I'm trying it. Sometimes it's going to work spectacularly, sometimes it's not, and I'm going to bring that in as well. And you build it over time. And Patricia's put in here, she said, it's so refreshing to hear Suzanne's story, because I'm constantly off on a tangent and don't follow a set path. I want to learn it all. I've always had a curiosity about runes, but really never really got it. So I listened to an interview, the interview that Laura did for me, Laura, and that was the spark I needed. And there's that like ignition spark, isn't there, where you go, oh, which we've talked about. And then there's the pursuit of your knowing.
Yeah.
That curiosity, which I always think, I work very closely with Odin, and most of the things that I ever do that are really, really good, it was because Odin told me to do it. Most of the things that I've done that are really bad, also because Odin told me to do it. but I did it, that's the point, isn't it? And you learn and you try that way. So it's like following that, following the path and bringing that trust in is so important.
Especially with the runes, I think, because the journey is so, because you think the runes are out there. So you think the runes are out there, other people are using them, and until you, like for me, like doing Awakening. So I did Awakening. I learned all that information from you that comes from different sources as well, so that you've put your recipe together. And I love your recipe, totally love your recipe. But then all of a sudden they have this complete personal thing with you. That is what shocked me the most. I wasn't truly expecting that. What I was expecting was to learn them. And I remember like some of our first Hearthspace readings, because I love that. That's probably like, I love the story, but the reading and the embodiment and meditation are my two favorite bits of the month of the Hearthspace. And the reading, and you were doing these readings, and I was sitting here thinking, I try not to swear, what the bloody hell is she doing? That makes no, how can she read that like that? That doesn't make sense. Like, because the runes are so amazing that, they're on their side and they're upside down and they're face down and they're this. And you were, and I was thinking, but she's not talking about the foundation stuff that we will learn in Awakening. And it took me quite a while to get what you were doing, that once you've got the foundation, that Isa means stillness and this and that, and it's got, every rune seems to have quite a few different meanings. And then, well, Isa's like, that way. Oh, well, I think I need to actually go and lie down. I need to be laying down, and I need to be on the earth. I need to go outside. It's like bizarre. And no, I wasn't expecting that. And then you get your apps. It's like your recipe is born with the runes. Yeah, that is just. I'm still gobsmacked by the whole thing. I just,
Oh, you found the recipe.
I found my recipe.
And it's funny, I think, that once people, you go through different phases with the runes, and you realize that when you start out with the readings, if you literally just start speaking what you know, it just sort of comes, doesn't it? And so much just starting to speak, and then it comes. And then there does come a point where you stop looking at the stuff that you know, and you start looking at the stuff that you know.
Yeah.
And the runes are very direct then. It's like Isa rune, and it's on its side. Is it a bridge? Is it the earth? What is it? And it's like, well, clearly in this reading, the Isa rune would just be very annoyed at me if I said it was the earth, because it's telling me it's a bridge. So they speak very clearly. That's why it's called rune amal, which means rune speech.
Yeah.
They start to speak to us directly, rather than, I suppose, having it like mediated through a trainer or through a book.
That's why we have to have the trust, and that has to be built, because you hold the space so amazingly, that you've let every single one of us blossom. Like a lot of teachers, and I've said this to you before, a lot of teachers cut people off and they say, oh no, that doesn't mean that. I mean, we've done things, and we've, in circle and things, and someone has said, normally Amanda said da, 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 and you've gone, oh, that's interesting, I need to look at that. That was so refreshing to find a teacher that wasn't, well, I know everything and this is how you do it. You've let every single one of us blossom. I don't know whether it should be called Awakening. I think it should be Blossom Awakening.
Blossom Awakening. I love it. I think that's probably because I'm a coach more than I am a teacher.
Yes, maybe. Yeah.
But I think it's definitely the sort of the function that's there. And it's interesting, I think, about I do have students who have come and train with me. And years ago, when I first started teaching the runes of seership, there was like in every group there seemed to be like one person who just they were just like, this rune means this, blah, 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 and they would just do it. And I was like, well, you don't know what the runes mean. You know, how do you know that when this is your first ever session? And I realized that for some people, they are so psychically open.
Yeah.
The rune just chats at them.
Yeah.
And that was my training there, and actually saying, you know what, when a person says, this is what I see, or this is what, there is always wisdom in what they are saying in the moment to be uncovered and discovered. And when you cut it off, you're cutting off that potential for that wisdom that the rest of the group are going to benefit from as well. Even if we do all sort of collectively decide, well, actually, yes, what that person saw was relevant to them in the moment, but it was maybe the rune was almost maybe like acting as a gateway for them to have, you know, the information that they needed, and the rune was just like, you know, that's what they need, and I'm telling them that.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean, oh, I need to add it to my kenning hoard of knowledge about this rune. But
I think that's what's different about the runes, isn't it? Like cards have like this meaning, and yes, when you're working psychically and that, you do get extra information. But you know, if I pull out the bear card means what it means. I can add a bit to flavor it for you now and what that's trying to say, but it's not like that with the runes. They just, I mean, sometimes they say stuff and you're like, that's just, it's almost like completely opposite. So say you got Hagalaz and he was saying, oh, everything's calm and lovely, and you'd be like, well, that don't make sense. You're like the hail seed, you're the storm, and then you're like, well, obviously the storm's gone. Or, you know,
yeah,
so they're just, yeah,
a lot of people do find profound peace bizarrely in the storm, don't they? And
yeah,
and inside the hail seed, I think it's, you know, those alternative meanings that you have for the runes that you learn. When someone says, I feel that stillness, it's almost like you've made peace with, you know, you're being asked to connect with that part of yourself that is eternal and rides the storm.
Yeah,
you know, you're right, and they speak to each other. And bear energy, you might think, oh, there's a Thurisaz bear energy, and then there's a Bacano bear energy, and they're two totally different energies.
It wouldn't be the same.
They're speaking all the time, so you know, that's why I like them.
Yeah,
they take us on a story journey, you know, which is slightly different each time. We get to be our own mini Shakespeares. You know, is it Shakespeare who spelt his own name 27 different ways, let alone all of the words that he made up through the course of writing his plays, which form this huge body of literature. And that's what the runes are fundamentally. They're the seeds of our language and our stories. So it makes perfect sense that as we follow them back down, they open multiple stories to us.
Yeah,
we have to get comfortable with their meanings first.
Yeah, for the foundation.
So thank you so much to everyone who's joined us. Suzanne, you've actually just started. I say just started. You've been doing it for a little while now. Your YouTube channel, Crowfire Talk. Run me through, because I love the names of your sessions because you do weekly sessions. Tell me about them.
Well, I've had like a Crowfire Talk group on Facebook. It's not, you know, I just post every day and stuff. And so I'd spoken to Lorna. Who's Lorna? Laura, and because she's got a YouTube channel, and I spoke to her about, you know, naming it, and I thought, well, I'd name it so it connects with the group. And I thought I would just chat about anything. And then no idea where it came from. I'm thinking Wednesday might have been Odin, but I got Chatterwitch Wednesday. I was like, okay, so that's very eclectic. That is telling my eclectic bits. So I'll talk about crystals and probably still talk about the runes and everything else and stuff. And then then it's Runic Thor's Day. So I'm presuming Thor came in for that one. And I was like, oh yeah, I like that. So I've got 2 days. So today's Wednesday's Chatterwitch Wednesday. And then tomorrow will be Runic Thor's Day. And with that, I'm going to just like really talking about the runes, how I use them, what I do with them, and, you know, so, but yeah,
which is
So
wonderful. And I'm so excited that you're sharing that, you know, out into the world. Is just fabulous. You know, that's what I dream of, supporting other people
yeah,
doing that.
well, it was the mastery that sort of, because I have thought about it over the years to do it. I don't like technology, and I do struggle with like technology and that side of stuff. But so I just sit in front of my phone and I waffle on like I have today, ramble on. If someone gets something good out of it, I'm not. They're not very polished, they are just literally me waffling.
I don't think of this waffle, and I don't think that people who've been here and have said how useful it is think that it's waffle either. It's very nice to have something that is authentic and a bit raw.
Yeah, I think maybe that's my Uru's sun rune, maybe it's like we are like primal, and we're not editing it, and we're not taking out this bit where I'm going which obviously I could go and well, I don't know how to edit, but if I did, I could go and take that out. But I think maybe the more I'm doing my runic astrology with you, I think the more I'm seeing that the actual root of the rune, that foundational bit that connects with you is like it's primal, isn't it? It's Uru's is this, just authentic.
Yes.
That's what it is. It is what it is. Uru's is the rune. It is what it is.
It absolutely is. You're right. Everyone's going, it just is. Take hold.
It just is.
So people can connect with you on your Crowfire Talk group on Facebook. They can come onto the channel. They can see like more eclectic stuff on a Wednesday, more Rooney stuff on a Thursday. And obviously you are also, which I love, hearth-keeper in the Hearthspace as well, making sure that everyone's okay, reminding people when stuff is happening, which is good because I'm not always so good at doing that. So, and if people have got any questions for you, they can always drop them in. And you also do such a good job on Mondays of gathering our
tribe in.
So on behalf of our group, thank you so much for.
I love it.
You are, I believe, a born collaborator, alchemizing people as well as, your magic. And it's so appreciated. So thank you, Suzanne, and thank you so much for joining me here today. It's been a real honour and lovely to have you as our first, I suppose, like in-house conversation with. Wonderful. So we're going to end there. And yes, so I'm going to finish the live and then I'm going to finish the recording. So thank you so much to everybody who has joined us on the chat. And please do carry on posting afterwards any questions that you've got for Suzanne.
Thank you.